this guy. Okay. Okay. It's the incel question. Incel, it means involuntarily celibate, and and it basically is like was originally used as a pejorative to people who couldn't get laid and whatever. So then it was kind of like appropriated by like Zoomer right wing people as like, yeah, we are incels, and it wasn't like, oh, we're so disgusting that we can't get laid. It's basically like, oh, we don't have interest in sex or whatever. We don't place the importance of sex or females or their opinions or whatever over ours or over what we want to do. Something along those lines or whatever. Nick Fuentes says that he's an involuntarily celibate, but he's rich and famous, so obviously if he wanted to, he could obviously get laid. He says that he's involuntarily celibate because he doesn't want to, and it is not his choice that he doesn't desire. So it's kind of a little mental gymnastics, it seems. But I guess what I want to know is like, from what I understand, it's church teaching, right, to be fruitful and multiply. God made men and women to be together. To Jesus said, the man will leave his mother and father and join a woman, and they will become one flesh or whatever. And from what I've understood, that should be the goal of almost all men, unless your goal is to serve God through a vocation of holy orders, right? But there are also circumstances where complete celibacy is accepted by the church if you are doing it to serve God, right? Like that should be, because if you feel that marriage or anything else is, I guess, hindering your relationship with God, celibacy is a fine vocation, but it is only within the confines of because you want to serve God. What is God calling you to do? Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, I do want to clarify. Sometimes people are like, well, if you want to be celibate for the rest of your life, you have to become a priest. That's actually not true whatsoever. You can be a lay celibate. That's completely okay. A lot of people don't say this, but if you legit for the rest of your life, you don't want to become a priest, but you don't feel called to marriage, you can be a lay person and be celibate for the rest of your life. You don't have to be married. And in fact, actually, a lot of the saints who were celibate weren't actually even clergymen. They were literally just people who didn't want to get married and stuff like that and dedicated their life, wholly to God. Now, I would say it should be for God. It shouldn't just be because you feel like hurt or dejected by women or something like that. It should have that purpose of being properly ordered to say, God, I am giving up having a family for your sake, and as a means of holiness. So it should never be selfish. But if you do wish to be a layperson, be celibate, that is entirely okay and even supported by the church. So don't feel like you're useless or something like that. As long as, of course, you have it with the mind to serve God and not like serve yourself in some selfish way, which that kind of would be
Yeah, I feel
almost
like
self-invalidating.
that's the problem, honestly. Because like in
I would
my opinion,
agree.
it's like, okay, you want to stay celibate for God because you want to, with all your will, worship God. Okay, then why not become a monk? All right, if you don't want to become a priest or whatever, if you don't feel like you're smart enough or can't do the work to become a priest, why not go live in a monastery or whatever and be celibate? I don't understand, how is lay celibacy a better option than, I mean, I'm not trying to be confrontational, I'm just asking.
No, of course.
How is being a lay celibate more, I guess, better or whatever than going to get holy orders or going to a monastery?
So what it is, it's the virtue of chastity. So it's the virtue of giving up something that would be pleasurable for us for a greater joy. And chastity is one of the best virtues actually that we can have. St. John Paul II says we shouldn't think of chastity as like a restriction giving up, but we should feel that it's like freedom over and from our desire. So much is open to us when we pursue a path of chastity. And, really we feel like we have complete control over our lives and that Jesus enters our life more because we have less of those selfish desires. And so if a lay person chooses to do that, that's a really holy thing, actually. In fact, actually, Spexo, someone you admire, I think very much, Antonio Salazar, he never got married, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a lay celibate, believe it or not, his entire life. And he was a former seminarian.
Wow.
So I mean, someone who we love and respect right there in our right-wing Catholic circles, he was lay celibate. He stayed his entire life chaste. And Antonio Salazar was a very handsome man. He was called the Bachelor, but he chose to give up, or not give up, but rather choose chastity for a greater and higher purpose. And I think that manifested itself in a beautiful way. Now, people should go out and get married. Getting married is wonderful, and we need more little blessings in the world. That is completely true. But don't at all feel like if you're not drawn to be called a priest, but you're also not also drawn to a family, that there isn't still a plan for you. You can still be a lay celibate and completely devote your life to Jesus. What I would say, and what I would maybe personally recommend, of course, barring that at the end of the day, it's God's word to you in prayer. But I would recommend, if you're a lay celibate, start an apostolate, start being kind of maybe like a lay missionary or something like that. See how you can help build up the church in maybe a different way as a celibate layperson.
Wow, yeah, that is a way nicer answer than I would have given. I would have said, get married, have babies, or become a priest, or you're a degenerate. But the church has spoken, so